Hello and welcome back to my channel. In this video, we will be looking at a few map work practice questions. Now, the first thing that you need to do when you are reading a map is to familiarize yourself with the key, bearing in mind that even though symbols are generally standard, they do vary from one map to another. So don't just assume the meanings of the symbols. Actually examine the key. And this way you will find it a little easier when you're reading your map. And while you are reading your map, you will still need to glance back at the key to see the features. Okay, so for this map, these are the symbols that we will be using, and these are their meanings. All right. So when you get map work questions, you could be asked a variety of questions. All right. And some of the questions you may be asked will be questions that test your skills, right? And skills could include your ability to locate features using grid reference. It could be skills that involves you being able to find the direction of one place from another, including giving the direction in terms of an angle. You might be required to find distances as well as to identify features such as relief and settlement and so forth. All right. So the first question reads, what is the height of the land in 2218? In other words, we are being asked about the highest point. And in this case, it is indicated by the trigonometrical station. This question is not only testing your ability to identify the feature, but it is also testing your ability to locate features using grid reference, right? So for this question, the height of the land is 785 meters. The second question says, what is the six-figure grid reference of the factory? So if you don't know which symbol or abbreviation represents the factory, you would need to look at the key, and then after finding out the symbol, in this case the abbreviation, you will next need to find where on the map this this abbreviation is, And then you need to give the six-figure grid reference. Now, I have another video that can give you a little bit more details on how to find six-figure grid reference. So I will place that in the description box. But for now, just know that you will need to divide the space between 22 and 23 into 10 smaller and equal spaces, and you need to do the same for that space between 19 and 20. After doing so, then it is easier for you to write down the values. First thing you do is to write the easting line to the left, the main easting line that is, to the left of the factory, which in this case is 22. Then you will move over to your right and see where the factory is located. Notice that the factory is between 3 and 4. And again, you will, as a rule, give the smaller value, which is 3. So you have given your eastings. Now it's time for you to give the northing. You again will write the value. Notice that the factory is between 19 and 20. So you give the smaller of the two, which is the value to the bottom of the feature, which is 19. So you write down the 19. And then you're going to move up. So you can just run your finger along the line and move up to the point where the factory is. Notice that the factory is exactly on 6. And so you will write down that 6. So the answer to the question is 22, 3, 19, 6. Notice that I don't separate the numbers. Notice that I don't put any punctuation mark between the numbers. I just write the 6 numbers, and that will give you the mark. All right, so we're on to the third question, which says, what direction would a student have to walk from the school to get to the library? All right. To make this easy and simple, we could draw a line connecting the school and the library, and then we could draw a north to south line through the point where the school is located. And we would do so because the school is a reference point. The reference point is the point that usually comes after the word from in the question. And after this, it would basically become easier for us to read off the or tell the direction. All right. So when you're telling the direction, you have to visualize the 16-point compass to see where this line would fall. Of course, in this case, it is halfway between the north and the east, so it will be northeast. Number 4 says, what is the angular bearing of the trigonometrical station from the police station? So the first thing we need to do is to try to identify the points in question. Next, just like when you're finding direction, you would draw a line connecting the trig station to the police station. And then, because the police station is a reference point, you draw a north to south line through the police station. As you can see, my line is not exactly through the police station, but it's close. So try to get it through the police station and try to draw your line as straight as possible, so that it won't distort your reading. And to do so, try to line up your north to south line with the um, with a grid line, which in this case is the easting line. All right. So for this question, we also need to use an instrument, which is the protractor. All right, so how you line up your protractor is also important. You are going to put the center of the protractor at the reference point. And in this case, because the trig station is located to the west, you are going to turn your protractor in a way that the 0 lines up with the south. Now, what you are assuming is that you already have, you already know the angle from the north to the south, all right, which is 180. And knowing that, you want to continue, so you would have to continue from the south to where the line is, all right? Now, all we have to do is to read off the angle from the protractor. This looks like 49 degrees, but remember that this is not the full answer. We will have to add 49 to 180, and this will give us 229. So when you're doing angular bearing, in order for you to get the correct answer, you have to remember the rules, and you have to make sure that you use a protractor. You can't just assume, and then how you turn your protractor is also important. So remember, the rule is that you start from the north and you go in a clockwise direction. And also bear in mind that values to the west will always be greater than 180, and that the angle along a line is 180. Okay? Okay, number 5 says identify the gradient of the surface in 2218, 2419, and 2318. So in 2218, the land for the most part has closely spaced contour lines, and this indicates that the land is steep. In 2419, there is no contour line at all, which means that the land is flat. In 2318, we see contour lines, but the contour lines are further apart, and this indicates that the land is gentle. All right, so on to number 6. Number 6 says, measure the distance of the river from northing 19 to the point where it crosses the road near the factory. All right, so for this question, we will need to use a straight-edged paper. We will place this paper at the starting point, which is where the river crosses the northing line, 19. And on the paper, as well as on the map with a pencil, we will mark off the 2 points which indicate the first straight length along the river. We will then pivot the paper around and mark off the next straight section. And we will continue to do this until we reach to the point where the river crosses the road. All right. Try not to skip any of the straight edges. All right. Just take your time so that you get the full length of the river. Now, after we have marked off all the points on our paper, it is now time for us to measure the distance along the scale. So we're going to place our paper along the line scale, and we always start at 0. So notice when we measure, we see one full whole number, which is 1 kilometer. But notice that we have a little surplus. So we're not finished. What we're going to do, we're going to take that little surplus and we're going to measure it at the other end. This other end is fractional. This other end is in meters. Again, we are going to start at the 0 and we are going to be measuring this time to the left. Notice that the surplus is 0.1 kilometer, which is the same as 100 meters. So since we already had 1 kilometer and now we have 0.1 kilometer, we're going to add the 1 kilometer to the 0.1 kilometer. So our answer in terms of the full length of the river is 1.1 kilometer. All right, so let's look at number 7. Number 7 says name 2 relief features found in 2218. All right, so the first thing we need to do is to find 2218. And then we are going to read our contour lines, for example. All right. So notice that our contour lines are bent in V shapes or even U shapes in some cases, where the V is pointing to higher ground or higher contour values, and that river is flowing through. That is a valley. So that is one relief feature. Now, adjacent to the valley, we see some U-shaped contour lines. And in this case, those contour lines are pointing towards lower ground. This is a spur. So we have a valley as well as we have a spur. All right. And further to the north and east, we see no contour lines, and therefore that area would be a plain. In that case, it's a floodplain because we have the river flowing through. Okay, so you would give any two relief feature to get your answer. All right. So on to question 8. Question 8 says, name the type of settlement pattern in 2318, 2219, and 2319. Okay, so in 2318, notice that the buildings are scattered or separated. So in this case, we have a dispersed settlement pattern. In 2219, the buildings are laid out in a line along the road. Thus, we have a linear settlement pattern. And finally, in 2319, the buildings are clustered around a point, and that point in this case is a road junction, and therefore this is a nucleated settlement pattern. All right, so those were just some of the questions which you could be asked to answer. If you develop your map reading skills, you will be able to look at a map and gather a lot more information. It is especially good when you can use the knowledge that you have from studying other topics in geography to gather even more information when you read the map. For example, looking at this map, you could talk about coastal features that you see. So notice that where the land projects outwards, we are seeing headlands, and where we have indentations, there are bays. So we are seeing a number of bays and headlands along the coast of this map. We would also see that we have different economic activities. So we have agriculture, and agriculture is indicated by the mixed farming or the mixed cultivation, as well as the sugar estate. But we also see a factory, so that's a secondary economic activity. And we also see a market for trading. We also see a hotel, which would indicate tourism. All right. Um, Notice also that the different economic activities are located um, where they are for certain reasons. So, for example, uh, where the factory is, that's a strategic location. The land is flat. There are roads running along the area for transportation. There's nearby settlement for a source of labor. It's close to the coast for international trading and so forth. So, how about you go ahead and examine the map and just write down information that you are able to obtain just by reading the map. That's what you will need to do in order to improve your map reading skills. So remember, I will leave you with some of the links that are related to this topic. And I hope that they will help you to improve your skills. So thank you again for watching, and don't forget to like and share this video. And if you have not subscribed as yet, please go ahead and do so.